This is a pattern that fits a dress form. It's the theoretical ideal figure, and the original pattern was draped on the dress form in a way that made it come out balanced. So you have the back bodice and the back skirt combined with the dart already balanced in such a way that the skirt and bodice can be made into a princess line on both the back and the front, with the extra darting from the shoulder in the shoulder area and the extra darting from the front bodice area in the armhole. Dress forms are made to be ideal and convenient, but I don't know how many people they really fit. If you pay attention to the side seam right here, on this ideal dress form, someone's ideal, the armpit and the side seam line up, and the hip area isn't bigger than the bust area, and the waist is narrower. And what we're going to be doing with this pattern is taking those pieces and separating them into the basic 4 pieces, the 4-piece sloper. And to be honest, I'm not sure I remember whether I draped this as one piece or into 2 sections, because it seems like this was originally a 2-darted pattern. So I probably combined them after the fact. If we look at this one, this is a draping on a real human. The hip area overlaps, because I don't know many women whose hips aren't wider, and so you have this dart that comes up the side seam and the underarm doesn't touch. You have the same thing here. The hip is bigger than the bust area. I think that's why we're seeing more dress forms with behinds now than we used to. It used to be much worse. And in this case, I want to draw your attention to the differences between them so you can fit more than one type of pattern, because no 2 bodies are identical. In this case, we've got the back bodice and this space required to cover the back bodice and the back waist area, but down here it doesn't require as much room. And if I were to trace this off and make a skirt pattern, this space is unnecessary because it's smaller. So this is draped to be used as a princess line. And this one, the shoulder dart, is much bigger, and the waist dart is much smaller, like the back, but because the bodice dart could be put in the armhole or the shoulder, it was possible to give the bust dart the amount that the skirt had and give the leftover to a different part of the bodice, where in this case that wasn't possible. So a couple of things that I do when I start cleaning them up. So this one's already been cleaned up and it matches, and sometimes people do things. But you see right here, this little line, the difference between this jagged line and this line that's not jagged? Sometimes people just make little changes to them. And if I were to take a 2-point line and connect with the last intermediate point and right click and say horizontal, I want to have my piece fixed up before I do things to it. So I could go ahead and modify this line and split it, but now that I zoom in closer, that isn't the widest line. So I would maybe want to create a line that comes from this point because it sticks out a little further. Right click, horizontal, set it down, and you see 3 different ones. And I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but before you use a pattern, you want to clean it up. And I don't. Okay. So now I can just say modify swap, touch the outermost line, and swap it for the solid line. And I can delete the other 2 lines and it's a better match. So we're going through theory and a thought process. I'm going to combine these lines again. Modify line, combine. And if I wanted to, I could get rid of that grade point too. Edit point, choose the point, highlight the grade rule and delete it. Sometimes that gets in the way and sometimes it doesn't. Alright, so I've got my back and front skirt pieces, and do you see how I'm always looking at the side seams side by side because they sew together? It gives you a little bit better perspective. And if I were to flip these over on top of each other, I'm going to move on to the next one in a minute, but if I flip about that line and I line them up, I could do set rotate and align them, but I know that these 2 are already parallel, so I'm just going to zoom in as close as I can right here, and I keep moving the mouse as I'm zooming so that I can get as close as possible. So I'm going to line up those triangles on top of each other so they disappear. And then when I zoom out, I'm looking to see that both of my side seams are identical. And one of them disappears behind the other. And it looks like the front is the one I'm happiest with because this line sticks out further. So while they're in that position, I'm going to create line copy, and this is something I do to all of the side seams on patterns because in a manufacturing setting, if you can make the lines the same and make the lines straight and parallel, you can bump them up tighter and make better markers and save fabric. For a one-off, maybe that isn't as important because we're sloppy when we cut, even when we try not to be. So I'm choosing my front. So select the line to copy. I've got my front. I'm copying that line, say OK, and I'm going to put it so that it's attached to the back and say OK. There's the line, and I'll cancel. So now when I move it, I'm just going to copy that line, and now I know they're identical. Okay, small thing. And then I would delete that line. But if we look at the front first, what I'm going to do at the front is that this line comes down a little bit and in this case I've got them just touching each other. They might separate a little bit here, there's a little gap, but whatever I do to the side seam on the front, I have to do the exact same thing to the side seam on the back. So I've got them overlapping here a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch. And these are just touching. So that might be a good place to start. But can I just take this pattern and start doing that with it? I'd like to, but I need to clean it up a little bit. So I have created a front number 3 so that I can just make changes to it and not worry about my original. So I'm going to piece to menu both pieces and bring them down, and now I can make changes to it. And this has been swapped because we fixed the armpit. Originally right here the armpit was too far forward, so my sleeve was going to be weird. So they have been adjusted so that the side seam is now coming from the exact center of the armpit. So I'm going to delete a lot of those lines that I don't really need right now. I've changed my side seam. And I've got my drill holes. I like the lines better in a way, but they're going to be more in my way. And I can treat this side, you can treat the drill holes this same way you treat a line to get rid of it. And maybe I'll regret deleting all these, but that's why I saved, nope, I have to cancel. That's why I saved the original too, so I could clean this up and focus on what it is I want to be looking at. Okay, and I would rather work with this with the shoulder dart in the armpit, and then I can come back to this. But for now, while I'm separating it into into 4 pieces, I would rather just have it over there. So I'm going to change that. And the dart I'm rotating is this one, and my rotation point right now is at the, well, that's not going to work. I want my rotation point to be at the end of the dart and my hold line. That's not the way it always is, but I've just been working with this one and that's where it was. So my opening point, I want to come back to here where it was draped. Okay, don't you love that sound? I hope you didn't have to hear that sound. I don't need to move any internal lines. And I'm just going to set that down where the original was also. So now I can delete some more things over here. So I'm cleaning it up. I'm not doing anything exciting, but now it's easier to look at. The first thing that's attracting my attention right now is this. Okay, that's a line to delete. That's better. So I have a few other stray things I could get rid of, but I can tell you're already bored. And I want to be able to line these up on top of each other. Well, look at this. We've got a discrepancy between the 2 side seams, so I'm going to flip those and make the side seams the same. And right here, it's going to be easier to match them if I don't have a grade point right there. So And I can just move that out of the way. And I'm getting rid of I just hit the delete button. Don't forget to say apply and OK. So now I can put them close to each other, zoom in as much as I can, and then disappear the one triangle behind the other. And then decide which line I want to keep. Well, that blue line right now appears to be the most accurate. So, and yet this one's sticking out a little bit more, but I'm going to go with the blue one, and the blue one is the front. So, create line copy. I want my front to come out. Okay. And I want it to go on my back. Okay, and then cancel again. So I'm going to swap that one. And then I'm going to delete that one again because I don't need it anymore. Okay. And yet I have this. Oh, that's right. Clear. So I had to have done something wrong there because they should be identical and they're not. So apparently I will quickly do that over. And I hope you're not sitting back there talking to me like in a horror movie and telling me what I did wrong. Apparently I copied the wrong line or swapped the wrong line. Okay, there we are. I try not to be a perfectionistic nutcase about everything, just patterns. Okay, this does not look. I'm cleaning it up because if I don't clean this up first, I'll be doing it again to the new pieces. What have I got here? What have I got there? Ah, okay, it looks like maybe we were cleaning up that dart at one time too. So I'm going to leave some of that alone. Does it work if I don't enable? looks like it does. But it looks like, oh, it was here. Oh, the dotted line is sitting on top of it. Modify, delete line again. It's a dart. Really? Can I really not delete that line? Modify, adjust, line. Choose that line. Okay, now that's a little teeny tiny line. No, not that. So now this is a tiny little line that thinks it's a dart. So I can't delete it. But it's holding our place there. That's handy. Okay. So my narrowest point is going to be my waist. And if I line them up on top of each other while I'm doing the waist, they should share a narrowest point because the side seam is going to end in the same place. Oh, but before I do that, modify line split because I want this to be a straight line when I flip it. And I'm going to flip it around that line. And when I line that up, that looks, you can see how that armpit isn't ideal. So modify, set, rotate. There's my line. So since the side seams are the same, I'm going to go ahead and fix that. And if I wanted to make sure the armhole was the same, create a 2-point line. And I'm just going to set it down right there and trace off a piece. Create piece, trace. That neckline looks awfully small, but when you're draping for individuals, you need to go with what's comfortable for them. And so we have the smaller neckline. This time I'm going to go from the end of the innermost point on the dart and the innermost point on the traced section. So with those together, that doesn't look bad. It's just this from right here to here that's a little weird. So 2-point curve coming from probably this intermediate point. Well, that's okay. That's okay too. But if I create a perpendicular online line that comes from here, doesn't really matter where, and then move that line, that was modify line move. What I really want to do is come well, look at that. So I should have done that first and just pulled out a perpendicular line. Because this is already a right angle. This one is just a dip. So I'm going to choose the line and then join it down here where I've still got my right angle. And I grab the piece back over out of the way. When I set that down, I don't want this line to cross under my right angle. Okay, so you can work with that, and you may do a better job than I just did. But I need to, when I've got this piece, it doesn't have any of the lines attached to it. This has them all, and that's where they really need to be. But I'm going to copy that right angle line to the back piece and I'm always wanting to catch copy piece, copy line, copy this line to this piece, say okay, there it is, cancel. So if I separate them, I'm going to clip. I want to clip this line till it touches that line, and I want to clip it back going the other way until it, oh no, does it touch this line? Yes, awesome. And I want to clip this, no, I want to clip, wow, that's just very uncooperative. I want to keep this side until it touches this one. And I want to split this line right here and swap this one for this one. Okay, so that's going to match. And I want to swap I have to split first because And I kind of, do I need to split it here? I kind of think I might. I might do that one. Swap this line and this line for I have to say okay. You're all yelling that at me in the background. I just know. Okay. So it did what I wanted. It took the lower side of the line. So I'm going to delete those lines because I got rid of the upper part of it. And I'll combine them back. And none of this is what you really had questions about. So you can fix those better if you want to, but that's where I'm starting. And I like being able to see that curve close and know that I'm happy with it. If you're not using the Gerber cutter, those don't really matter, but it's easier to align the pieces with just the triangles for now. So this piece is crooked. I don't like it. I'm just going to go to Modify, Realign, and if I realign the piece and not the grain, it will go back to its original space. Okay, so I'm going to save them, and where am I going to save them? Before I save anything, I have to change that quite often. So I'm going to Paths, and it's going to Zero Share, and that's where I want it to be, and I probably didn't need to resave it, but I did. So save. Okay. I also don't need this line. Alright, so separating it into sections. We're going back to where's the narrowest part. And if I come over to verify line length, verify the distance between two lines, I'm going to, touch this line, and once I come across, it's 10.558, and it's gone back up. 10.6, 10.6, 598, 593, 587, 576. So if I leave that right there, how far down is that? So but I believe we're looking at this point right here. So I'm going to put a notch. And see, if I had put the notch there before I separated it, yes, and that's where that intermediate point would be. So there's a matching intermediate point over here. So I'm just going to put it there. And then we'll see if they match. Well, what? Do I need to realign the other piece? Realign. Modify piece, flip. Do you know how often I have tried to change that piece and make it stay? All right, fine. It's time we have to realign the grain. And I hope the side seam still matches. I think it does. Okay, so I'm going to save over them again. And they flipped up here this time, so maybe that will be a good thing. I don't like the grain line in the middle of where I'm working, so I'm going to move the line and set it down out of the way. Okay. So what we have here is a jeans line. And I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but we're going to pull a line straight down from there and see. Create a line from where that notch is. Right click, vertical, and set it down. Well, it doesn't line up exactly with that line. That's okay. I can't drop the waistline down to here because it's not the narrowest point over here. So I need to think that through. And while I'm at it, I'll do another one. And I made sure that I waited until it said that it had the notch. So I want to keep these lines if I'm making jeans or I'm lowering my skirt and I want the waistline a little different, but you have to have the waistline at the widest point, including the hips, when you're making changes and making your basic bodice and skirt. And it would probably be easier for me to redrape the skirt. It would be that fast than to try and separate it. But you're going to learn things from watching this about the thought process, so I'm not going to worry about it. My front dart, I want to average out from that position. So right here, if I make myself a regular dart and I want to pick that up and make sure I've caught the very end of it again. These other points, well, that probably wasn't correct either. I'm going to undo those two because I have to set a good example. So if I'm going to create a 2-point line from my bust point and right click and say horizontal, I'm dependent on this end point because I can't move my bust dart. And if I come over here to this one, do I get the same line? Pretty close. I think I'm going to go with that one and delete the first line. And it was the shorter one. Okay, so now what I want to do to check these lines is mirror them. Create line mirror. I want to mirror all of these lines and say OK and choose the center line. Well, I've got my 2 outside lines, my 2 inside lines. Down here at the bottom it's almost identical. So I'm going to go around and use the smallest, the interior line of all of the lines. I could come out and make it. Okay, the reason I want to use my smaller set is because that leaves the most space for the body to occupy. On the other hand, I'm not liking either one of them right at this moment, so never mind. I'm going to put a mark right between the two and just make my own line. Because those, I'm going to leave them there. You can do what you want with them. No, no. Because I'm splitting that in half. But I'm going to use the smaller line. And then I'm going to create a line by mirroring it. And I want to mirror this line around this one. So that is our average dart. And I'm going to pick up this line. Oh, no. Come on. End. I want the end of this line. Oh, that's just wicked. No. Come on. Highlight. Oh, I'm in mirror. No wonder. So I've got that line. I'm coming back down here. And I'm going to choose my center point right between the end of the 2 originals. And then I'm going to catch that one. And come back up to this one. Okay. So because I'm making a basic front, I'm going to just trace it off and separate it. And if you want more lines later, you can go back and get them. So this is going to be the same thing. Is this actually the center of the dart? Well, no. If you look at that, it's actually not. It's really close to the center here, but it's not the center of these 2 lines. So I'm going to use that same thought process as I did up here and mirror. Create line mirror. I want this line, and that line, and that line, and that one all mirrored. Okay. So this line that was transferred from over here is going to cut off more. So we'll be adding about a 1/16, maybe a little bit more to the piece, but I'm going to swap. I'm going to delete the lines that are over here, and I'm going to swap the line that I transferred from this side to that side because it makes it a little bit bigger. So modify, swap, internal line, 4. Uh-oh, can't do that. Modify line split. Have to split right there. So swap, select the internal line. Oh, I want these two instead of, now that might make a big mess what I just did there. Yes, did you see that? I didn't choose them clockwise in an order. So I want this one and this one in exchange for this one and this one. And now it's perfect. Clockwise in an order is your friend. Uh-oh, what have we got here? So I'm seeing an edge that's sticking out here that's the furthest out. And I want this line to be straight, so I'm going to pick up that intermediate point and come out horizontal. And that intermediate, come on, come out horizontal. Is that really the widest one? Might be a little bit further. But this needs to come out down here because it's not straight. Now, I don't spend all this time on every single pattern that I do, but if it's a basic pattern that I'm going to be using on the same person or the same style over and over, and it's going to be my sloper, I want to get it as correct as I can before I start using it. Yeah, that's minuscule. So I'm going to come back and put one straight across from the other one. Overkill. And it's the third one. Modify line split. No. Split the solid line. Okay. Swap that one for this one. When it's only one line, it's not as scary. And this one for this one. Okay. So now I'm going to delete all of those because I found common ground. No, I'm going to leave that one. And sometimes you can't delete them all at once. Alright, I'm going to adjust the length of this one so that it's not in my way. And I'm going to keep the inside line here on both of them because it's bigger. So err on the side of making things I like the way the other one matched up better. Alright then. I'm going to create a mark right here between these two. And I have my mark there. So on this one I made a perfect diamond dart, and I'm going to do the same thing back here. I'm not going to come back to the one that I'm making right now when I make a princess. The one I'm making right now is for use as a bodice and skirt sloper. So it's changing slightly. And if I look at my widest point here, it's going to be right here. So I'm going to draw another line there just because I don't have a really good reason. But I know that's a straight line because those lines are a mirror image of each other. So if I were going by my dart, my fisheye dart, my diamond dart would go from here to here to here and back up to here. That's the narrowest point on the center back. But the narrowest point on the side seam is a little high, and the narrowest point on the front, is it right on that line? It's close enough to that line. So bodies are weird and muscles are weird, and for your center back, I guess I could say we're going from this line. Yeah, I think we will. Yeah. So I'm going to pull that line out, modify, adjust. And it might not be identical because keep in mind that this drops down and joins this, and that's the natural position that jeans are going to sit, not a skirt. And I'm going to use this lower line on purpose, and it's going to curve up, and we'll keep this with the skirt, and then when we do the bodice it's going to come down to that line and then back up. And that's just going to be my best guess, and we'll make a sample. Okay, so I'm not convinced that this is a right angle. But it was. So I'm going to trace that off now, just because it will be easier with all the less lines. Create piece trace. This is my back down to here, and I'm keeping that line. Modify line split. I'm going to split this line into two places and go back to create trace. Clockwise in order. Well, that made it a little more difficult. I could have cleaned it up more than I did, but I'm tired of it. Are you? Okay, there's my perimeter lines. Now for my interior lines, I want the center one, and I want my drill holes, but I probably want these more because they're close to the waistline. No. I also want to keep the grain line, and I'm going to copy those two. And this one. Okay, so there's my back bodice. And while I'm here, I'm going to send it to menu because I'm superstitious and crazy. Well, what do I do when I trace off this skirt piece? I'm going to trace it off the way it is, so I'm going to draw a line across the bottom to close it. And I might wish I hadn't, but that's what I'm going to do. Okay, create piece trace. This one. This one. Okay, that's keeping my thought process intact. and I want my drill holes. I don't want that. I want that. And I want these lines. And I want the same grain line. Oh. Okay. And I know I'm going to change the skirt, so I gave it a 1. So now might be a good time to pause and turn it into separate videos.